it. Let's chill here.
I divorced has been the most rewarding and challenging experience in my life. Ethan is brilliant, funny, and kind-hearted, but I've found that juggling the responsibilities of a mother and a father can be overwhelming at times. That night, I was so exhausted that I hardly had the energy to change into my pajamas, much alone going to bed. The house was so quiet. I was appreciative of the time to myself after Ethan had gone to bed with 2 hours after a night of studying video games. I drew the cover up to my chin, sunk into the warmth and comfort of my bed, and lay there with the moon's gentle light throwing subtle shadows across my room. The only light coming through the thin curtains made the place seem secure. Curled up beneath the covers, I reflected on life. It had been relatively calm lately, which was a relief after everything that had happened in the past year. Ethan and I had overcome many challenges since his father left, and we had been figuring things out on our own. Despite Ethan being almost 20 years old, we still shared a close bond. He was thoughtful and caring, and sometimes I worried that he took on too much responsibility for someone his age. I smiled softly at the thought of him, though, and I felt fortunate to have him in my life. But tonight, I was too tired to dwell on anything. My eyelids grew heavy, my body relaxed, and I was about to surrender to sleep when I heard a gentle knock on my bedroom door. I stirred, groggy, and even though Ethan hardly spoke, the sound of his voice aroused me to my core. With my eyes darting back and forth, I tried to concentrate, and in the weak hallway light, I could just make out Ethan's figure standing at the doorway. Standing on my elbows, I blinked away to sleep rather than I asked him, "What's wrong?" in a voice that betrayed my exhaustion. He paused for a moment before entering the room, then quietly shut the door behind him. His movements were so tentative, as if he weren't sure he belonged there. "I couldn't sleep," he whispered, trying to avoid my stare. A pang of worry went through me. Since the divorce, Ethan has been having trouble sleeping. He hadn't said anything about it, but I could see he was dealing with the changes in our life and how his father's absence had impacted him. On evenings like these, I could feel the weight of it in his eyes, more profound than he let on. So I gently gestured to the space next to me and said, "Come here." He paused briefly before making his way over to our bedside. As he lay on his side, facing me, I noticed a hint of exhaustion in his face. But there was also a quiet vulnerability in his eyes, one that he rarely showed. I asked, my voice low, if he wanted to talk about it. Ethan shook his head, his dark hair falling into his eyes. No, he simply wanted to be close to me. My heart melted. It had been a long time since Ethan had sought comfort like this, as he had when he was younger. I reached out and gently brushed his hair away from his forehead, smiling and reassuring him that he was fine. We lay there, embraced by the silence of the room, as I whispered, "You can stay as long as you need." He smiled back, but there was still an unspoken tension between us. I refrained from pushing him, instead choosing to lie back and pull the blanket over us. I thought Ethan had slept off as his breathing became more regular and deep, but then he asked his mother, "Do you ever miss him?" in his sweetest voice. If you're still tuned into this video and find the story inspiring, drop a 1 in the comments to let me know you're still with me. I didn't have to ask who Ethan was referring to. I knew he was talking about his dad. I've been avoiding answering this issue for a long, since I didn't know how to handle it. Occasionally, I would concede that my voice was just as quiet, but our relationship was strained. Even though he nodded, Ethan, his gaze never left me as he waited for anything more. Have you ever considered the possibility that things may have turned out differently? Signed, I feel burdened by the weight of what has transpired, yet there is nothing we can do except carry on. With his fingers tinkling with the blanket's edge, Ethan said, "I suppose I just wonder if I could have done something differently. You know, if maybe I had been better." I sat up and turned to face him furiously as it struck me hard. I reached out and drew Ethan into my embrace. He fought me at first, but eventually he relaxed into my arms, resting his face on my shoulder. "You didn't do anything wrong. None of this was your fault," he whispered. "But sometimes it feels like if I had just been better, maybe Dad wouldn't have left. Hey, Ethan, I just wanted to talk to you about something. Your dad's leaving had nothing to do with you. He made his choices, and those decisions weren't meant to burden you. You've always been more than enough. Okay, you're my life." I could feel the strain in his body as he nodded into my shoulder. He had been bearing this burden for far too long, and I had failed to see that it had just now become apparent to me. We hugged one another for a long, and I could feel the tension starting to melt away as we spoke about how deeply it had affected me. Ethan's breathing became more regular, and I could tell he was starting to fall asleep after a few minutes. I remained awake, my thoughts racing with recollections of all we had been through together. But there was something else, more unexpected, as when I lay in the dark with my son, Ethan, by my side, I felt a surge of love, not just...
Which there is no one here at the moment besides those two guards. I mean those two guards. Since those people are here, over that way, let's do it. Right here, Mom. Begin. Well, I will see you in a year. See you then.